Hello, my beautiful baddies. Welcome back to yet another episode of Your Inner Baddie Speaking. This week, we are back to the love letter collection. And I won't lie, this is something that even for me, I had a hard time admitting to myself that I felt this way. I definitely had a hard time sort of vocalizing it. And actually, a friend of mine over New Year's Eve, sort of that week, inspired me via a conversation that we had to write a love letter about this. It's taken me a while to kind of, I guess, accept the fact that even though I've had shit happen to me in my past and I've had trauma and I've had things that I've had to deal with that not everybody has to deal with, or people have different scales of, you know, what they've gone through and all of that. And my circumstances fall somewhere on the scale and theirs fall somewhere on the scale of maybe something similar happening, right? But I held on to that for like a long time. I used to feel defined by my trauma. I used to feel that it was such like a deep part of me. I used to feel that there was no escaping it. Like the pain I felt and the trauma I had was who I was. And it's such an interesting concept because in this conversation with my friend, it was such a eye-opening thing, and I had been thinking about it for a little bit, but I guess I had never really truly vocalized it, I guess, or at least sort of let out how I was feeling about all of that, and the fact of I have been through that, but I am not that. Like, I was a person before those things happened to me, and I had pieces of my personality before things happened to me, and I had ways of loving and ways of reacting and ways of being that were before me. Oh, hi, Burry. For those of you watching the YouTube, you'll see a little flicker of Burry. But I had I was a person, I should say, before I was my trauma. And as my trauma happened to me, and it wasn't just a one and done, it wasn't like something happened over a day and then, you know, I completely changed, but there were survival patterns, or there were things that I developed, behaviors that I developed both as a part of my trauma that were inflicted on me, and there are ways that I developed behaviors in response to feel like I could survive, right? And anyone who's been through trauma or traumatic things in their life, like, you understand that who you develop into and the things that you add into your life or into your behaviors are not because that's who you are. It's in response to what's happening to you. It's your brain's way of, okay, if we have to get through this and deal with this, then we're going to need to do this to get through it. But when those particular things aren't happening anymore, who are you without it? And that was something I struggled with for a while, because I was like, no, I am my trauma. I am my pain. I am this person. Like, it's like such a typical, like, not to make fun of it, but, you know, anyone with trauma loves dark humor or loves being sarcastic, because that's the shit we had to develop to feel better and not let it weigh and crash down on us. So forgive me for having a little humor with the situation, but like, it's like a 90s type rom-com shit. It's like, you know, the woman who's like a nerd or whatever, she's got glasses and her hair up in a ponytail, and then one day She takes the glasses off, lets the ponytail down, and everybody's like, she's been beautiful this whole time. Oh my God, whatever, right? And that's how I felt sort of about my trauma. Weird analogy, I know, but I felt like, oh my God, I'm gonna find people who, when I like let my trauma be known and expose the things that I've gone through, they're gonna be like, oh my God, you're so lovable. You have value. You are enough, and like feed that. It was almost as if all of the insecurities that had dawned on me during those times, I was like almost like 90s rom-com style, like digging for somebody when I would tell them these things to be like, oh my God, it's so bad, poor you, and oh, you are enough, and like fishing for somebody to tell me that I was wrong about the insecurities that I have because of what I'd gone through. And don't get me wrong, like everybody's got their insecurities no matter what, right? Like I would have had some insecurities no matter what happened to me in my life. Like that's just being a human, right? But I had like some extra shit that came with my baggage. And in talking with my friend, it was like we were just kind of discussing like how to not hold on to that anymore, how to not be that version of myself anymore. And like don't get me wrong, I love the previous versions of me that got me through those times. Like sometimes it was so difficult to see the light or to want to continue, and a version of me did what she had to do to get through it. And fuck, I would thank her every day of my life for getting me out of it, for moving forward so that I could know the life I have now. I would not know life as it is now without her, without those versions of me. So like I am forever grateful for those versions of me. However, in my healing journey and in my journey to get to know myself and build my confidence and be the most badass I can be, I felt like, okay, I've got to put this down. I got to put this trophy that I'm like putting up on a motherfucking pedestal down. My trauma is not me. That pedestal is not me. And to say that I was putting my trauma on a pedestal sounds like the weirdest thing on earth, but I'm sure some of you will relate in the fact that like it became such a thing that I was almost proud of. Like I have suffered and I have gotten here and I have lived, and therefore I can't let it go. I can't let it go. It was me. It defined me, right? And so that's why I say I put it up on a pedestal, because like at some point it went from I'm in pain to I was in pain. I'm in pain because of this. Everything had to do with my trauma. Everything. All right, maybe not everything. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating a little bit. But it felt like everything had to do with my trauma. And it was so hard to take it down from that pedestal and remember that I was someone before all of that. And me at my core is not my wounds. Sure, my wounds do and did define how I became the woman I am today, but it is not the woman I am today. I have certainly learned strength, and I have learned skills, and I have learned how to speak up for myself again, and I have learned how to regulate my nervous system again. And I've learned to do so many things because I knew I had the strength to get through that. So I know I have the strength to move on and do more, right? But it was hard to separate me from me with my pain. And as I started to really fall in love with myself more and give myself more self-love and pour into myself, I discovered parts of me that just felt joy or just felt happiness or just felt calm and peace. And those no longer matched the woman who is defined by her pain. And I wanted to keep exploring this version of me that did not lead with her pain. I guess that's probably the best way to say it, is I was leading with my pain. A lot of the things I did were leading with pain, even though I had such good intentions. I mean, I didn't want my trauma. I didn't want any of that anger and that suffering and all of that. I didn't want it, but it had become such a big part of my life that it felt like that was me. And now I was discovering parts of me that didn't feel that pain, that didn't feel that suffering. And it became this juxtaposition of like, who am I without it? Do I know who that is? Can I let it go? Can I let it go? And like, I have been to therapy. I have done so many things to work through all of that pain. And yet, even though I had felt like I had made such large strides and I thought I had left so much of it behind, I was still, to me, defining myself as the woman who had shit happen to her, the woman who had struggles in her childhood, the woman who had depression, the woman who had anxiety, the woman who had suicidal ideation, the woman who didn't want to take another step forward, who wanted to stop completely, the woman who collapsed on the floor crying uncontrollable and was not able to self-soothe. I was still in the mindset of that's who I am. And so as I healed and I loved myself and I was like, and I started to get rid of the negative self-talk and the negative self-image and the negativity that sort of held me in that trauma cocoon. It felt like I was wrapping myself in it. And as I shed that, I was like, oh my God, I know days without pain. I know days without sadness. I know weeks without sadness. I know weeks without pain. Oh shit, I know months without sadness. I know months without pain. Or even now when I feel moments of pain or stress or whatnot, it's wild because while I'm feeling it, I can remember what it felt like to let that consume me. I would let a moment of sadness consume my day, consume my week, consume my month, depending on what it was, of course. And now it's a fleeting thing. I'm like, okay, fuck, that sucks. I talk about it, I vent about it, I do something, I take action, and I'm over it. I'm like, okay, it's not the end of it. I'm not that pain. I'm not that moment in time. I'm not that. I am now free of letting those emotions and pain shackle me down, cocooning me. I'm discovering this version that no longer does that no longer clings to it, that no longer feels like that. And sometimes even with talking with trends, I'll find myself deep diving back into that trauma as if I'm supposed to. As if I'm supposed to still be there, still feeling it, still experiencing it, still going through it. As if I need to keep bringing it back to life. As if I need to resurrect it so that I can be that person again. And don't get me wrong, like, I think it is amazing to be able to vocalize and be able to speak on the experiences that you've had, especially with distance, because you notice, like, I can now talk about feeling like I wanted to commit suicide without crying. Sometimes if I'm in a particular situation, depending on the full topic itself, I can get teary-eyed for sure. But I can also talk about those things from an objective standpoint, because now I am not that person in pain. I am not that person holding on to that pain. I am someone else that developed out of that pain. I am someone else who has established things that no longer have to do with that pain. Like, I cannot believe the amount of happy memories, joyful memories, laughing till I'm crying, dancing in my apartment, dancing for joy, looking at my cat and just beaming, like, look at the life we have. That's not the same person that felt overwhelmed by her trauma. I do feel like a different person. It was so hard to separate that. And in that conversation with my friend, it was like, I want to learn how to live without holding all of that, without feeling like I have to be all of that. I don't have to be defined by it. I don't have to hold it anymore. I don't have to save space for it anymore. As long as you've dealt with it and processed it. Like, I'm not saying throw that shit to the side because you want to be a different person. I'm saying when you start to heal and you start to feel like you are at your core rewiring yourself, and you start to feel new pathways, you don't have to hold on to the old. It's like we've talked about on other episodes of when you let go of things, you open up the door for new. Well, as you grew that confidence, as you grew that self-love, as you grew into a new version of yourself, it's okay to let go of the old versions. And in talking with my friend, I was like, I want to let go of that. I have felt so many different ways of being now. I have felt so many different ways of regulating, of kindness to myself, of grace to myself. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not saying like I've now become such a new person, I don't have issues. Like, fuck, I still got some shit that comes up. Like, don't get me wrong, life still throws curveballs at me. Life still stresses me out. I still get sad sometimes, but it's not who I am anymore. I'm like, I really feel like I was in a cocoon of pain. So much so that I couldn't see outside of it. And so that was just my reality. And I felt that because I couldn't see outside of that, that had to be my reality. That had to be who I was. That had to be my world, my identity, my personality. And as cheesy as it sounds, I feel like I've developed wings and I've stretched them and I've learned to accept them and I've learned to breathe life into this new version of me, that I don't have to feel confined by that cocoon anymore. I can be whoever the fuck I want to be. I can be that confident badass. I can be that woman who loves herself. I can be that woman that has more happy and good days than she has bad days. I can. Because I've worked towards it, I've experienced it, and I know it can be my reality. I don't have to feel trapped by my wounds anymore. And out of that conversation and out of that sort of expanded realization, I wrote a love letter to myself about releasing that. And I'm not gonna lie, it felt very therapeutic for me to do this. So this is the love letter, all about letting go of that chaos, stopping the victim mindset, and stop holding on to my pain as if it had to be a part of me. All right, here it is. I love you. Once you were addicted to the chaos, to the highs, and definitely the lows. And with that, you were addicted to the pain and the suffering that came with it. It became all-consuming, feeling that your trauma was all you were, like a key pillar of your identity, one you couldn't let go of. And because you clung to it, it defined who you were, what you did, and became something hard to let go of, even though it was all the things you didn't want to think of. Until you decided to see what life was like without holding on to all that pain. You chose to see yourself with all that noise around you. You chose to see who you really are without the added pain that you clung to. You chose to see beyond the badge of honor you donned on yourself and instead ask the question, who am I without the pain, without the trauma? In doing so, you discovered who you really are, what you actually like, what makes you laugh, what brings you joy, who makes you feel seen and safe, who is there when your guard is down. You get to finally experience who you really are. The girl you were before you held pain, along with the woman you've become without limits. Now, you are just you. What a beautiful thing that is to finally get to know. And because you now know who you are, you can become who you were meant to be. Personally, I can't wait to see what you do when you lead with love in your heart. And I pray that you never fall into the trap of your hurt again. Because I loved you then, but I love you even more without the shackles. Because you are not the victim. You are Corinne. And I love you too much for you to ever become something else again. And that was, it was difficult to write because it's difficult to admit that, like, I'm holding on to pain. Because, like, what fucking logic, like, that doesn't make sense, right? Like, what? Why would I hold on to pain? Why would I hold on to suffering? Why would I cling to things that made me feel awful, that I want to let go of, that I don't want to think of ever again? Like, why would I do that? But over time, it defined how I was. It defined my choices. It defined if I was scared to do things. It defined a lot of me. And a lot of those patterns would come back up in some of the people who were around me because I was used to it. I was used to pain. I was used to suffering. I was used to trauma. And I held on to it so much that things or people could come into my life that felt like that. They felt so familiar that I literally would gravitate towards them. I didn't want to. And I didn't even know I was doing it. But it felt familiar, right? It felt like what I had gone through. It felt like the pain I had had. And that was my normal. I was in that cocoon where that was normal. And so with each experience or each trauma or each thing that happened, it reinforced it, right? And I wish it didn't take the lowest point in my life to realize that there was space outside of that, that there was a whole life outside of that, But in all honesty, as much as I wish that, I'm also so grateful that something in my life woke me the fuck up. Because I don't know. At the time, I didn't know that there would be this life outside of it. I didn't know what it was going to take for me to see that, if I ever was going to see that. I mean, fuck, there was a time that I thought that I wouldn't live to experience that. And now, having been in that world and been in that headspace, I can't believe how much time I spent not knowing and not believing that there was something beyond that. And I want all of you to experience what's beyond that. You are not your pain. You are not your suffering. It is not a trophy. It is not something that you should put on a pedestal. It is not something that you should wrap yourself tight in like a fucking blanket and call it comfort. It is something that you should shed so you can know what it's like to have good days without pain, to feel joy without consequence, to feel life. And I know it's not fucking easy because, man, it took me a long time and it took me a lot of bad circumstances to get it through my head. And it took even after that, feeling happiness and feeling good, to finally understand that I was holding myself in a victim mindset. That I was holding onto my trauma so fucking hard, there was no way I was going to get out of it. Because I held on to it. Not because anything was being done to me, not because I was in the thick of it still, but because I chose to hold it and to hold it close. And like, it ain't easy to admit that like you're the fucking problem, especially when it comes to shit that rocked you to your core. But I don't want to be the woman who thought about ending her life. I don't want to be the woman who locked herself in bathrooms and cried profusely. I don't want to be the woman who's doesn't feel she's enough, that had all of these wounds inflicted on her, that she believed that she was not good enough. I don't want to be that woman. I want to be the woman that sits before you today that feels actual gratitude for every fucking fiber of my being, that feels like life is this bright, burning sun that I get to bask in. I get to smile for no fucking reason because I have so many reasons to smile. And I want you to feel that too. But I felt glimmers of it. I felt pieces of it. But I still felt shackled by my past. And I don't want you to be shackled. I want you to love those versions, appreciate those versions, feel grateful for those versions. But I want you to get to know the version of you that isn't defined by that. It is a part of your story, for sure. And I don't want to rewrite my story because I am now in the chapter I'm in. But I want you to write those new chapters. I want you to experience those new chapters. I want you to be the person that you were meant to be when you are not bogged down by the things that tried to break you. I want you to feel that. I want all of you to feel that. And it takes time. It takes support. It takes healing. It takes a lot of those new experiences to reinforce that it doesn't have to be like that, to almost pull that wool out from over your eyes. so that you can see that that can be your reality. I want you to understand that that can be your reality because you deserve it. You deserve a reality where you are living and not surviving. All right, guys. I hope that love letter helped you like it did me, and I hope that you take away something from that, whatever it might be. But know that your reality can be different. All right, guys, with that, say it with me. I'm a fucking baddie. All right, love y'all till next time.